takes a disaster of this nature to expose it.
Let me go to Congressman Scalise. What do you think of this mess? I mean, I am like everybody else watching our North American continent get destroyed. You want to call it the Dead Sea, you call it anything you want. It's not funny. I think this is bigger than anything that's happened in American politics for years. We've got a government that looks impotent in the face of the oil industry. It looks like BP has a business challenge, and the American people are watching it meet its business challenge while they're destroying our continent. Your thoughts, Congressman?
I'm angry, Chris. You know, if you look at the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, this is America's energy coast, but it's also a living, working coast for so many fishermen, people who make their livelihoods right there, and their livelihoods are in jeopardy. Many of them can't work today. They haven't been able to work for weeks. What we've been saying for weeks now, though, is that we've needed approval from the federal government to go and put a barrier plan in place to try to protect our marsh. This is a plan that was put forward by our governor and our local leaders and our responders on the ground.
What's stopping you from putting up a defense against this oil spill into your territory? What's stopping you from doing it?
The thing that's stopping us from doing it is the federal government. We need permits from the Corps of Engineers. In fact, 2 weeks ago, our governor asked for that approval to the Corps of Engineers. We heard nothing for 10 days. Last week, I led a delegation, our entire congressional delegation, all 9 members, sent a letter saying we need to get this acted on immediately. I actually forwarded that up to the president last week. We have still yet to hear from the president on this. He could do this today. He could make this happen today. Instead, 2 weeks have gone by with not a single word from the president about this plan.
Engineering question. Can you put up a berm? Can you put up a barrier by mankind effort, by men's efforts? Can you build a barrier that keeps the oil from the beach?
What you can do is you can get dredges out to start dredging the sand and putting a barrier in place in front of the oil, in front of the marsh, so that you can at least you can defend it if it's in front of a sand barrier before it gets into the marsh. Once it gets into the marsh, it's a whole lot more destructive, and maybe the long-term damage is being done.
To create these man-made dunes. There's enough sand out there to do it.
There's sand, and in fact, the governor's office identified a number of borrow pits where they can go get that sand, but we've got to get that permit approved, and in fact, I think the governor said he's got tired of waiting, and so we're just going to go do it. The problem is we lost 2 weeks, Chris, 2 vital weeks, where 2 weeks ago there was no oil in our marsh, and today the oil is permeating through the marsh, and we lost valuable time because of government's inaction.
Let me go back to Congressman Rahal. I'll be back to you in a minute. Final thoughts here. It seems to me there's 2 challenges here, Congressman Rahal. Number one is to cap this well. To cap it, I don't know, it looks like they've given up on this plan, this short-term plan for a top kill. They apparently can't put that together in the short run. They got a 2-month outline of planning to get another well dug down there, another outlet for the well that they can regulate. Then we have the cleanup of what looks to be between 7 and 70 million gallons of oil out in the Gulf. What's the federal government role in both those jobs?
Well, I was briefed today, Chris, by BP on these various alternatives that they're going to try as a last-ditch effort. It's also very clear here that we have a responsibility on our Natural Resources Committee to find out what happened here. We're going to do that in a series of hearings starting tomorrow morning. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, Chris, to figure out that something went wrong here, but it may very well take a rocket scientist to help us cap this well. And it's important that we work together on this, both the government and BP.
What's the federal government responsibility for capping and cleaning up both? Congressman, one more try. Congressman Rahal, what is the government's responsibility? Is it just waiting for BP to do it?
No, it's not just waiting. The government has a responsibility to help here where they can offer help to BP and all the parties that are liable. They've been doing that. Secretary Salazar has been on the scene. We have seen equipment offered by the government and government equipment put to work here. So the government's not standing idly by. But we're beginning to lose a little patience with BP, as everybody is, the fact that it has not yet been capped. But let's bring in all the experts we can, engineers, everybody, scientists. NOAA's on the scene. The federal government is on the scene. I had staff members down there immediately after this disaster occurred. They have reported back. Congressional committees have been investigating. You'll see more of this. Is it too much? No, it's not too much, because we don't have any answers yet. And so the more hearings we have, the better.
Okay, let me go to Congressman Lee. Again to you, the 2 questions. What's the government's role? The cleanup
If you look at the actual law, the Oil Pollution Act of 1990 governs what happens during an oil spill, and the law says the president shall mitigate this disaster, not BP. Unfortunately, the president has ceded this responsibility to BP, and they've proven that they can't get the job done. We thought after day 3 that the White House should have taken over and said, BP, you're not capable of handling this. You're going to have to pay for it. And we all agree BP pays for this mess. But in the meantime, we've got to get somebody in there that can actually get something done, and they're not doing it right
Congressman,
now.
You're talking like an American, not a Republican in this case. I'll tell you, this is a public solution to a private problem created by the private sector. The public has to deal with it. I agree with you completely in this regard. Thank you, Congressman Rahal, and thank you, Congressman Scalise. Up next, a Republican House candidate